Good morning, everyone. Good day. This video will cover our discussion, first part discussion for chapter 7, which covers sinking fund and amortization. So this first part of the video will be covering what do you call this sinking fund. So before I start, I'm just gonna turn off muna my camera para di mag-agaw ang ilang signal. Okay. So let's start. So, um, again, this chapter, which is chapter 7, covers sinking fund and amortization. So before we go further, let's differentiate muna these two. So sinking fund actually it's establishing a future amount through periodical payments. So in this case, diri pa lang, diri pa lang daan, we already know that what we're looking here is a future value amount. And by the way, sinking fund and amortization talks about annuities. So since we're talking about annuities, what future for future value amounts, we will be using the formula for uh, future value of ordinary annuity, so FVOA, and future value of annuity due. Now, your book only covers future value of ordinary annuity, but I will also be introducing you future value of annuity due using sinking fund. Now, for amortization, it's extinguishing a current amount through periodical payments. So when we say extinguishing of debt, meaning imuhang bayran. So so what we're talking here is this is from nothing to something. While on amortization, since we're extinguishing a current amount of periodical payments, so we're aiming for something to become nothing. So something to nothing. Okay, because our here kasi guys, diba, if you would always think about it, usually when we're talking about future value amount, our usual problems is you will be establishing a retirement fund, so you'll be making periodical payments because you have a goal that, for example, at the end of your working years, you'll have a retirement fund amounting to at least 5 million pesos, things like that. Now, for sinking fund kasi guys, its focus is different because a retirement fund is that you're not establishing for retirement fund, you're establishing a fund so you can use it for future uses like to fund you when during your retirement years. Now, sinking fund kasi guys is from the word sinking fund. It will sink your liability after, like, for example, you have a liability that will become due 5 years from now. Now the payments are not periodical. You will just be asked by your creditor to make periodic interest payments, but not periodic principal payments. So for example, you have a liability of 5 million pesos. Now, so this liability was incurred by you, or was afforded by you, for example, today, and this will become due 5 years from now. Now, if so since the problem is it will be payable the 5 million will be payable 5 years from now, and you will only be paying interest for example, every year for those 5 years. So your liability actually is not a liability of annuity, because what you'll be paying is just simple interest for 5 years. So pagpalagay natin na your interest rate is 10%. So you'll be paying how much? that's 500,000 every year. So since you'll be paying 500,000 every year, you'll see later on why this is not an annuity problem, but I'll explain it to you later. Now, sinking fund actually talks about um, establishing making periodical payments so that at the end of 5 years you will not be burdened by a a lump sum of 5 million pesos to be obtained from your own funds. Okay, if you would think about this way guys, na if dili ka mag set aside og so kabalo ka nga nakiutang nga 5 million to that will be due 5 years from now. So kung dili ka mag-anam-anam og ipon og kanang money nga that will grow to 5 million pesos at the end of 5 years. So you will be burdened of kanang generating 5 million pesos by the time na mag-mature yung liability. So this is the purpose of that sinking fund. It's to gather or to establish a fund through periodical payments so that by the end of 5 years, that lump sum nga liability nimo that will be due in 5 years will be paid off during that sinking fund or will be sunk down by that sinking fund. Okay? Now, on the other hand, si amortization naman is parang your agreement with your creditor is that to pay the 5 million pesos periodically. So you'll have to pay like let's say I don't know let's say that you'll have to pay a certain amount of so your liability is let's say 5 million or still, and you'll have to pay periodical debt just 500,000, but you have to, aside from paying interest, you'll also be paying some portion of the principal, so that what do you call this one, your liability will be paid off, um your liability will be paid off annually, but not as a whole, but in annuity, kumbaga. Okay, so by through equal payments. Okay, so we'll be discussing amortization on a second part of the video. For now, let's concentrate muna on sinking fund. Okay, so let's start. So actually, guys, again, diba, we know that for future value of ordinary annuity, our formula for FVOA is simply I'm not sure if I can. Um, I really want to. I really want to create a formula here. I don't know if I can insert a formula here. Let's see. Symbols. Is it symbols? Equation. Oh, I do. I can. Okay. Sige. So again, our formula for FVOA is payment is equal to payment is equal to payment. You multiply that by let's do fraction. Multiply that by uh, 1 plus I, and then let's do, oh, okay. Do that, and then, okay, so let's do this. So that's 1 plus I, and you raise that to the power of n, and then minus 1 over I, right? This is our formula for FEOA. Let me just transfer it here. Okay, is equal to, okay, let me delete this. Okay, so this is our formula for FEOA, right? Now, the thing here sa sinking fund is that we already know kung how much ato ang liability that we will be paying off by the end of 5 years, and that is 5 million. But we don't know yet, um, but we don't know yet So ito ha. So our liability is this 5 million with 10% interest payable every year. Now, on our what do you call this one? On our um on now we want to establish a sinking fund wherein um we will be paying certain amount periodically that will grow to 5 million pesos by the end of 5 years. Now, di siya necessary guys, no? Na 10% pod ang ma-earn nga interest sa imuhang sinking fund because it would be so idealistic. Now, let's just assume that your sinking fund will earn, so this is your liability. So let's just state this into a problem, no? So you have acquired a liability of 5 million pesos to be paid in 5 years. At the end of 5 years, we paid at the end of 5 years. Tapos, let's just delete. You have acquired liability of 5 million pesos to be paid at the end of 5 years, um, bearing an interest of bearing an annual interest of 10%. In order not to be burdened, we decided to um, establish a sinking fund that earns 8% to pay off the 5 million pesos at the end of 5 years. Of 5 years. The question now is how much must be set aside at the end of each of the 5 years to reach the 5 million peso target at the end of 5 years. 5 million peso target. Okay. So let me see if some bound grammar no. Okay. You have a core liability of 5 million pesos to be paid at the end of 5 years, paying an annual interest of 10%. In order not to be burdened, we decided to establish a sinking fund that earns 8% to pay off the 5 million pesos at the end of 5 years. How much must be set aside at the end of each of the 5 years to reach the 5 million peso target? So now we already know our future value of ordinary annuity, which is 5 million pesos, but we don't know the payment. So with that, since we don't know the payment, so what we should do here is, so what we should do here is that, okay, so format. Ito, where's the design? Insert. Bakit nawala yung mga ano? Sige na lang. I wanted this to be easy though. Equation. Insert. Okay, learning how to use this one, guys. Okay, so let's just copy this one. Oh, here we go. Here. Let's start with fraction. Okay, so what happened here is that your FVOA now will be then divided by this one. right? Because what we want to do is to divide this whole equation by mhm, and we also want a fraction here. I know. Ta-da. Design. Yun. Fraction. Because what happens here is that this also oh, fraction. Okay. What happens is that this whole equation will be divided by this. Okay. So after that, let me extend this one. Nadita. Thank you. Okay. So what happens now is that once we will be dividing both sides by this one because this is we our unknown is payment, so we want this to be a loan in that part of the equation, so we divide both sides of the equation by this item or by this expression, so this will get canceled out and this will be transferred on the other side. So what will be retained here afterwards would be, let's just insert a new equation. Okay. So what will then happen is that let's just transfer payment on the other side. So that would be payment. And then since this is cancelled out, mawala na siya. And what will be retained on the other side is this one. Um, FVOA over another fraction. Mm-hmm. Well, let's start with this script. 1 plus I raised to the power of n minus 1 over I. Now, if you can remember your parang characteristics of like mathematical equations, if your denominator is a fraction, so you can change the division into multiplication by by inverting the expression on the denominator. So what do I mean? So what will happen here is that we can also express this equation by writing this one. So this is payment is equal to FVOA, and then you multiply that by this fraction I, and then divided by 1 plus I raised to the power of n minus 1. Okay. So again, what happened to our division here? Since our FVOA is our numerator, we change that into multiplication by inverting the expression in the denominator. So it now becomes I over 1 plus I to the power of n minus 1. So this is our formula for FVOA. Now, what will happen if our sinking fund is an annuity due? Okay, so what will be its formula? So its formula would be, so we will still have this. Okay, for annuity due, we will still be having this. However, we continue with adding this one. No longer, no need. So they're just simply adding 1 plus I. Okay. Now, guys, always remember that your n here is your m times t. That is the period of the low of the debt, and you multiply that with the number of compounding periods. And then our I here is our our interest per compounding period, or that is nominal rate over n. Okay, inom over n. Okay, so since what do you call this one? Actually, these are our unknown is still payment, right? So what will happen here is that madungagan lang ang ato ang expression here og 1 plus I. Same here sa obos. So madungagan lang ni siya og 1 plus I. And same there is sa other side. You just have to add 1 plus I. Okay? So, okay. And then, since this will get eliminated, what will be retained here would be this one. Just have to add another 1 plus I here times 1 plus I. Okay. And then again, since we can another expression for this one would be like this. You copy this, and it will become like this. We'll just use bracket. And then you transfer the 1 plus I here. So what was the reason nga nung we were able to transfer this part? Yeah. So what was the reason why we were able to transfer the 1 plus I on the side to the numerator of this 1 plus I to the power of n minus 1 over I na expression? Now remember that when multiplying whole numbers, because this can be considered a whole number because it has no denominator expressed in there. When multiplying whole numbers with fractions, so always remember that whole numbers or this expression has a denominator of 1. And in multiplying fractions, our process would be numerator times numerator, and then denominator times denominator, and then now we can combine two fractions. Okay, so since this is our first numerator, so we enclose it in the bracket, and then we multiply that by the numerator of the second expression all over the denominator of the first expression multiplied by 1, which is the denominator of the second expression. So that's still I times 1 is I. So that's why you have that. And after having this, we can now do what we did here, wherein we inverted the expression on the denominator to transform the division sign into the multiplication operation. Okay, so we copy that. Oh, no, we don't copy that. We copy this. Oh my God. It's all over the place. Okay. Okay. So with that, where were we? Yeah. So our expression here, let's just copy this expression and then we paste it here. No. Like that. Okay. So this will be our final formula for, can I highlight bold and then red? This will be our final formula for payment when the problem or when our sinking fund is that of an annuity due, and this will be our final formula for an annuity for a sinking fund. The payment of the nature of which is an ordinary annuity. So now let's go to solving our payment in this problem. So our FVOA. So let's just copy this, paste it here. Mm, let's just use blue for the solution. Okay. So our FVOA is how much? That is 5 million pesos. And our I, that is 10%. Numerator. 10 or 0.10. And so this is 0.10. Our N is that is 5 years minus 1. Okay, so if you calculate that, so let me just calculate it here. That's 5 million pesos. Okay, and then we multiply that by, that's 0.10 over 1 plus 0.10 raised to the power of 5. And then we just enclose this by another bracket. Ooh, another one. This one. No. This one. Okay. So our periodical payment should be 800,000, 987.4. Did you get the same answer with this one? Using this by inputting this in your calculators. Now, let's after solving for the payment, let's before proceeding to making our schedule, let's try to solve this muna when the problem is an annuity due. So it's just this one. Yeah. Okay. But na lang siya additional here nga bracket and another bracket, and then multiply this by 1 plus 0.10. Okay. If we do that, this would amount to, that is, we can just copy this one, and then we modify this by adding that's a bracket. Okay, times 1 plus 0.10. Oh my god, what happened? Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, so our payment now should amount to 744,534. Let me just check that on my calculator first. One, okay, that's correct. And the second one is correct as well. Okay, now let's proceed to establishing, since we already know our sinking fund payment when it is an annuity due, or when it's ordinary annuity, or when it is an annuity due, let's proceed on making our schedule. So our schedule has 6 columns. So the first one, which is our number 1, would be our active period. So let's start muna with FVOA, future value of ordinary annuity. at the end of period. So this is annual. And then our second column is interest income on sinking fund. The third one is third one is periodic deposit in the fund. Fourth one would be periodic increase in fund. Then the fifth one would be sinking fund accumulated. And we have our six, which is book value. Book value of your debt. Book value of 5 million pesos. Okay. Now, this before we proceed, so in our sinking fund, diba, as what I have said kanina, na in sinking fund, you have a separate debt, and now since you have a debt, which actually you will be paying an interest expense on that. So aside from that is you will also establish a sinking fund in order for you to pay off that debt at the end of the maturity, at the end of it, when its maturity date arrives. So with that, on your debt, you will be having an interest expense. On this case, this is our 500,000, which is the 5 million, and then you will just simply multiply it by the periodic interest, which is 10%. So periodically, or in this case, since annual man siya, periodically or annually, you'll be paying 500,000 pesos at the end of each year for the interest expense alone. Now, aside from the 500,000, you also decided na you set aside 889.87.40 annually, so per year, para at the end of 5 years, you will have 5 million pesos to pay off the debt that will mature, which is 5 million pesos. So, pila man imuhang total cost of or total amount spent every period? Imong total cost because of your kanang liability of which naapod kay gi-establish ka sinking fund. So your total cost will simply be the 500,000 plus the 808,987.40. Okay, so let's just say it here. Our total cost for FBOA is simply periodical payment of sinking fund payment. And then you add to it your periodical interest expense. So, interest expense. Okay. So here, guys, what you will be at, though your sinking fund actually earns interest income, kay di ba? You're setting aside money. For example, like think of it ba na as if you are depositing money to a bank, tas mag-earn to siya interest income, di ba? Until it becomes 5 million. Is that thought for sinking fund, and then once maabot siya 5 million, mo imong gamiton og bayad sa imong liability. So since imo mo siyang gi-deposit like utang ta lang nga sa fund or sa kanang basta kay gi-depositan nga it would earn interest income. So your sinking fund will earn interest income while at the same time you are paying interest expense on your maturing liability na 5 million. Okay, so your total cost now would then be your periodical payment of 818,987.40, and then you add your periodical interest payment of 500,000. Okay, so your total cost now is 1,318,987.40. Sir, mao ba na siya ang mugawa sa ako ang sinking fund table? Malamang no. What will kanang be reflected in your sinking fund schedule is only your sinking fund payment. Okay, so this is year 1, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and then year 5. So your interest income on your sinking fund, if this is a future value of ordinary annuity, is 0. Sir, nganong 0 man? Wala man kayo multiplyan sa imuhang. Sige, butang na, para picture out ninyo ha. So at year 0, malamang wala pa man siya naka-earn nag-interest, wala pa siya periodic deposit in the fund, wala pa siya in periodic increase in the fund, wala pa siya sinking fund accumulated. So 0. And your book value of your liability is 5 million. Okay? So, your interest income kasi will depend on the sinking fund accumulated 1 year before, 1 year before this one. So, 1 year before the end of year 1 is of course in year 0. And then you multiply that by your interest rate na 10%. So, 0 siya. Now, your periodic deposit in the fund is malamang sa malamang it's 818,987.40. God. Fine, 40. Okay. So, ayun. Now, your periodic increase in the fund is actually your interest income in the sinking fund based on the prior period balance, and then you add your current deposit in the fund. On the first year, since wala pa man kay interest income na na-earn, so your periodic increase in the fund will equate to your periodic deposit in the fund. And your sinking fund accumulated is actually equal to the balance in the prior period, and you add your periodic increase for the current period. Okay? And your book value will actually be equal to the 5 million pesos. I-deduct from that your sinking fund accumulated. Okay? So at the end of the first year, the book value of your liability is 4,181,012.60. Now, kung anong makaingon matag book value? Because sinking fund is a long-term asset. While your long-term, no, do not drop that. Okay. While your liability, while the amount that you obtain here is a long-term liability. Now, since this sinking fund is directly established to extinguish this long-term liability, now the book value of your long-term liability would be its cost, which is the 5 million, and you deduct from it the balance of your sinking fund, which is your sinking fund accumulated. Okay, so again, we'll copy this one, that your interest is equal to the balance previously, and then you multiply that by your interest rate. Okay, our periodical deposit is the same. And then our periodical increase is the interest income based on the prior period balance, and you add now your periodic deposit in the fund. So our accumulated again is the balance previously, and you add the periodic increase today for this period for the second year. And then your book value again is 5 billion. and you deduct the accumulated sinking fund. Okay? So, if you copy this, at the end of 5 years, okay, so at the end of 5 years, let's just let's adjust our periodic deposit for the fifth year because this is due to rounding off. Okay, so with that, by the way, guys, when it comes to adjusting your sinking fund schedules, always adjust the deposit, not the interest income. Okay, now so with that, guys, so again, by paying 818,987.40 for 5 years, but for 5 years, then what do you call this one? Mm, your sinking fund grew to 5 million pesos. Now, this 5 million actually, guys, is equal to the total of your interest income. So, so this column and then this column. So if you add these two, you will get 5 million. So your total interest income plus your total deposit in the fund is equal to the total of your sinking fund. Okay? Sige. So with that, we're done with FVOA or future value of ordinary annuity na establishment sa ato ang sinking fund. And again, your periodical sinking fund payment plus periodical interest expense is 131,897.40. Okay? Now, for what if the case is it's a future value of annuity due. So this is future value of annuity due. Okay. So for future value of annuity due, on year or parang before pa lang mahuman ang year 1, no? So instead of at the end of period, so at the end of the period. Okay, let's use that. Shall we use that? Mm-hmm. Or shall we use hmm, hmm. Sige ha. So for FBAD naman kasi it's quite different in when it comes to like computing for sige. Okay, let's do this at the beginning. Mhm. Mhm. It's quite different. So this one, let's just say this is our interest income on the sinking fund. Okay. For your FVAD kasi, this will be quite different because your periodic payment is made at the beginning of each period. So let's try muna 744534. And I'm gonna rearrange the schedule later on once I get the clearer picture. 744534. Okay. Sige. So for your for annuity due, 'di ba, you make the payment at the beginning of each period. So coupled with your first payment is wala pa man kay interest. So wala pa kay interest earned. However, imuhang increase on the fund again, your first increase in the fund will be equal to the uh, to your first deposit. Okay? So your accumulated will be equal to this. Okay? So the thing here, so initial pa lang daan, the book value na of your liability is 5 million. And then you minus na your accumulated sinking fund. So before pa lang nag 1 year ang imuhang sinking fund, you already have put it put in it 744,534. Okay? So with that in mind, so at the end of the first year, you will earn your interest payment. Okay? And then your periodic deposit in the fund is made at the beginning of next period, which is beginning of the second year. Okay? So let's just there. Okay. And then so your what do you call this? So this is your periodic payment, and then so your first interest is based on your initial payment, and then this periodic payment, so a modern periodic increase in the fund would be the sum of these two, and your accumulated sinking fund is that one plus that one. Okay. So the start the parang the table will still be the same. It's just that on the very first period na anak kay first payment, and on the last period wala kay payment na. Okay, because always remember that you only should have 5 payments. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 made at the beginning of the next period. Okay, so alamang the next period of 0 is 1. So this one is made at the beginning of year 1. This is the next period is year 2. So this was made at the beginning of year 2, made at the beginning of year 3, made at the beginning of year 4, made at the beginning of year 5. Okay? Now, interest, even if now this thing when it comes to annuities naman din guys, always remember that your interest is always earned at the end of the year. Okay? So, muna siya nga, this is at the end gyapon of year 1, 2, 3, 4. Naka-earn kag interest ka 7,453.40 on your first year. Okay? So, that one. So, naa kay periodical increase tayon for per period. And then, so, again, on the last, so, blanco na siya dira. And then, so, again, we will adjust here our payment by 0.02. Will it yun? Okay. So always remember that what you're adjusting is your periodic deposit, not your interest. And then for this one, we extend it here. Okay. So the table will still be the same. For annuity due, your sinking fund accumulated will still be equal to the interest income on sinking fund, and then the periodic deposit in the fund. Okay, total for those two, it should still be, they should be 5 million pesos. Okay, so with that, we're done now with, um, what they call that one, establishing our FVOA or FVAD. Now, this table is very helpful. Why? Um, this will help you in answering na on period 3 or period 4, what is the interest income on the sinking fund? Or in period 5, what is the interest income on the sinking fund? Or what is the balance of the sinking fund at the end of year 4 or year 3? Now, this table will help you to pick that up parang instantly because, what do you call this one? Kanang it's already reflected here. So at the end of year 4, your sinking fund accumulated is 3,800,920. Okay? So, ayun. Aray ko. Okay. Sige. Now, when it comes to, pero, there, kanang sir, mga patanin mo nga, sir, is there a, kanang, sir, what if ang period sa liability is 50 years or like 60 years, things like that. So, tas mga tatanungin ka, sir, nga, kanang, what is the balance of the sinking fund on the 30th year? So, sir, do we have to build a table for that long? So, dili na. Um, na actually shortcut which is by using the formula. So, Since ang pangutana, for example, is balance of liability of sinking fund at year 4, let's start na lang at year 3. At year 3, so yung balance is simply the future value, this formula, we'll be using this formula, VOA, but our period is the year in question. So that's year 3. So our FVOA then will be your payment, which is 818,987.40. And then yeah, let's just copy it here. Okay, so our payment is, how much is that? 818,987.40. And then you multiply that one with 1 plus I, so that's 0.10. Raised to the power of 3, which is the year in question, minus 1 over I, which is 0.10. Okay, so when you calculate that, this will equate to, that is 818,987.40, and then you multiply that by 1 plus 0.10 raised to the power of 3 minus 1, and then over 0.10. Okay, so the answer now should be 217,848.29, which is equal to the accumulated sinking fund balance at year 3. Okay, so what if the question is year 4? So kung year 4 ang pangutana, you simply have to change the n here and replace it with 4. And 4. And so here, the value, change that to 4. So 3,800 and 20.52. Or what if year 3, year 2? Year 2. Okay, so again, change lang into year 2. Okay, I'm going to change here to year 2. Okay, so that's 1,719,873.54. So ang pangutana na, so sir, what if ang pangutana kayo, what is the interest income on year 3? So your interest income on year 3 again is, di ba, ang interest income na to is ang sinking fund balance, interest on sinking fund balance in the prior period. So since year 3 man ang question, you have to solve for the balance of the sinking fund for year 2 and then simply multiply that by the interest rate. So this is now then your interest income on year 3, which is equal to balance in year 2, and then you multiply that by the interest rate. Okay. What is the question is interest income on year 4. So interest income on year 4. So balance of year 3, which is this one, and multiply that by 0.10. And interest income on year 5. So balance on year 4, multiply that by the interest rate. As you can see, that's 171. So 171 and 87.35. And then we have 271,084.83, 271,084.83, and 380,092.05, 380,092.05. Okay? Okay. Sige. And then, yeah. Okay. Now, let's go to our FVAD. Actually, this table is quite 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 mistaken eh. Sige lang ha. So at year zero, let's mhm. Mm, 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 mm. Mm. Because it will not reflect the balances. Okay, this will reflect actually the balances at the beginning of each year. But it will not give you the okay, sige, sige, sige. Okay. Okay, sige. Now for what do you call this? For FVAD. Okay. Hmm. So for FVOA kasi guys, wala siya parang dili siya ma-complicate ang questions because if ang question is what is the balance at the beginning of the second year, you will only get the balance at the end of year one because a year after, a day after kanang wala man kay payment na mahitabo because your payments are made at the end of the period and your interest are earned at the end of the period. Okay, so kung yung pangutana is balance of sinking fund at the beginning, kay kumingkag at year 3, usually this is at the end of year 3, at the end of year 4, at the end of year 2. While kung mangutana siya nga lang trick question lang kumaga ba na, what is the balance of the sinking fund at the what is the balance of the sinking fund at the beginning of year 2? So you only get the balance at the end of year 1. Okay? Now, the complication now will happen kung ang sinking fund nimo is kuan siya, what do you call this one? Are annuity due because your payments are made at the beginning of each year while your interest is still earned at the end of the year. Okay? So, with that in mind, let's compute muna sa katong balances at the beginning of kanang unsa nga year. So, balances at the beginning of year 1. At the beginning of year 1. Year 1. So, this will be quite simple. Kaya you simply have to like replace lang nimo ang formula nga kani with with the year. So, for example, this one. So, that's year 1, no? Okay. So, this will give you, without computing, this will give you 744,534. But let's just solve it for the sake of solving it. Okay, so this is 5 million, and then you multiply that by 0.10, and then you divide this by. Okay, I'm getting the gist of it now. 1 plus 0.10 raised to the power of 1. So, okay. And then you deduct 1 from it. And then you multiply 1 plus 10. Okay. Yes. Bakit 0? Times 0.10. 1 plus 0.10 is 1. Hmm. Hmm. Sorry, sorry, sorry. Tama, no? Mhm. Yeah. Ooh, what happened here? 454545. MC. It should not be it. It's not 5 million, but it should be 7.5. My God. It should be payment. Nope, 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 nope. This isn't the formula that we will be using. This is the one. I guess JP. So let's just copy this one. Let's copy this formula. Take that one. So we'll be using this formula. Okay. And then for the beginning of year one, we will be using this. So our payment is 744,534, and then 1 plus 0.10, and then 0.10, and the our n is 1. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this should be 744,534, and then you multiply that by 1 plus 0.10 raised to the power of 1, another, and then you deduct 1, and close that in parentheses, and then you divide it by 0.10, and then you multiply it by 1 plus 0.10. Oh my god, it happened there. Okay. At the beginning of year one. Okay, so actually, guys, at the beginning of year one, why did I like do this? Anyhow, so at the beginning when the of year one, guys, again, wala siya interest nga na-earn. So with that, FBOA will be equals to payment. This will happen in year two. Okay. At the beginning of lagi na something wrong sa sorry. Sige lang. At the beginning of year one, ooh. Dili siya magkuan. Sa beginning, dili gyud mag-complicate. Let's get back to that later. Endings at the balance at the end of year one. Okay. Okay. And then, let me transfer it there. Okay. Sige. So, now palang daan, I can know that there is something odd na about the table that I made. Okay. So, okay. So the table for your annuity due should be different. With that in mind, maglahi na din iyahang forma. Diri na dayon tamag hugang og accumulated. Okay. Pwede. Okay, sige. Mhm. Okay, so wala man siya nga part. Okay. So, thinking fund accumulated is 0 at year 1. Sa beginning niya, Sinking fund accumulated beginning. Tapos sinking fund accumulated end. Better. Okay. So, sinking fund beginning is 0. Atong interest income, huwag ka ni siya mag-change ng ilahang placement. Okay. Okay. Better. Okay. Interest income in the sinking fund would be equal to the sum of the beginning of sinking fund balance and the additional payment for the period, and you multiply that by the 10%. Okay. So your periodic increase in the fund would be this one. Your uh, sum of your periodic deposit and your interest income for the year, and your sinking fund accumulated end would be equal to the balance at the beginning of the period plus the periodic increase. Okay. Now the balance at the beginning is equal to the balance of the sinking fund of the previous year. And then this is before periodic deposit. Mhm. Okay. Okay. We'll just add another column here. Kaya mas na-picture at new. Sinking fund accumulated beginning before periodic payment. Tapos, sinking fund accumulated beginning after periodic payment. This is okay, and this should be the basis for your interest income. Sinking fund accumulated beginning after periodic payment. Yes. And then periodic increase in the fund. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, so periodic increase in the fund is this one. And then sinking fund accumulated and sum of the two. Yeah, sinking fund accumulated and. Okay. Now for your second year, so your beginning is this one, and then you add your payment. So this should be the basis for your. It should be the basis for your. What do you call this one? Should be the basis for your interest income, which is the sum of your last year's ending balance plus your additional periodic payment made at the beginning of the year. So this is some which is kanyang total, and then you multiply that by the total by the 10%. That's your interest income and the sinking fund for the period, and your periodic increase in the fund is your periodic deposits made, and then you add your interest income on the sinking fund, and your sinking fund accumulated would be equal to the beginning. So, or like the balance, the sinking fund accumulated balance n plus the periodic increase, or pwede po siya nga diri ka mukuan sa iyahang beginning period before periodic payment, which is equal naman lang amount. Okay? So, with that in mind, it's equal to this one. Okay. Thank you. So with that, so balance at the end of year one is this 1. So that's at 818,987.40. What if the question is the balance at the end of year 2? Just copy these in the formulas then. This is 2. Then on this part, change that to 2. Raise to the power of 2. So that's 171,987.54. You still got that. And then it's here too. Again guys, no, ang mas easier yun sa kung i-solve nimo si kanang what we call this one, ordinary annuity kaysa si annuity due nga katong kung i-compare nimo ang iyahang schedule ug ang iyahang table. Pero nonetheless, if you will get the gist of it, maura gid actually siya. Alang kay madugan nga 1 plus I. Okay, so this is 3. Oh. And then copy this again. Edit it to 3. 82710, 848.29. And then so year 4 as well. Okay, so anyhow, you will get the gist of it. So mo lang yapon ang ilahang balances. Okay. So okay. So if you would tawag ani, if you would what do you call this one? If you would look at our tables, no? Walay differences ang sa ato ang kanang ending balances whether or not ordinary annuity man siya or annuity due siya at the end of each year. 818, 179, very million. Okay, wala gyud siya differences. The only differences nga mahitabo diri sa atong table is ang ato ang periodic payment, which is mas gamay si annuity due, and our interest income for each year, which is kanang if you can see nga si ordinary annuity 4 years lang ang iyahang na interest income, while si annuity due is ang tibuok 5 years iyahang na interest income. And if with that, mapansin po ninyo nga mas gamay ang total sa periodic payments ni annuity due kumpara kang ordinary annuity because mas dako ang iyang interest income na na-earn as compared kang ordinary annuity. Okay? Now, tawag nito, the difference dayon is kanang what if pangutan-on dayon ka o beginning balance, because at the beginning of the year your sinking fund nga ordinary annuity will have the balance nga similar sa iyang accumulated nga sinking fund. However, imong beginning balance at the imong balance at the beginning of kanang at imong balance at the beginning of each year is for example si year 1. Si year 1 is ang iyahang formula would be kanilang kay wala man siya interest pa nga na-earn. So kanilang sa ang iyahang formula. With that, 7 F iyang FB of annuity due. Anong ordinary annuity? Oh, nagyapon na siya. Dapat annuity due na na siya. FB annuity due. Annuity due. Annuity due. Okay? And then, while kung ang pangutanan niya is kanang kung balance the beginning of year 2, So balance at the beginning of year 2 is that you'll just have to add from your balance at the end of year 1, which is this one. You add from this whole thing another payment na 744,534. And that will be your beginning balance at the end of what year. So for example, kung year 2, so get the ending balance at year 1 and then just add 744,534 or just add one payment. So with that for year 2 kani siya. So let's get this one. Kay mura man ni ang ato ang kanang gigamit. And then we add to here 744,534. We add that. Okay, this should be the balance at the beginning of year 2. Well, beginning of year 3, yes, we will get this one. Okay. Same naman din. So, for this one, beginning of so beginning of year 3. Beginning of year 3, that would be, so you change that into 2, and then change this into 2. Okay, so you will get you get the gist of it. So let's see. Yeah, so balance at the beginning of year 1 is after periodic payment is 744,534, 156,352.1.40, and then 246,4407.54. Okay, sige. Now, when you would ask me kung pila ang iyahang interest, so kung FVAD siya, tapos kung pila ang balance niya at kanang pila ang balance niya at year 1. So, at year 2, at year 3. So, always remember that you cannot use the ending balance. You should always use the beginning balance for FVAD. So, for year interest at year 1, so, ang kaniyang beginning balance itong gamiton. So, this one, and then multiply that with 0.10. For year 2, beginning balance at year 2. So, this one times 0.10. And then, beginning balance at year 3. So, this one times 0.10. Okay, so that's 74, 453, 156, 352, and 246 for 40.75. Now, if you will be asked as to the book value at whatever year, so always, kung yung pangutana is book value at the beginning of year 1, so compute for the balance at that year 1, beginning balance at year 1, pero kung, excuse me, kung ang pangutana niya is the book value at the end of year 2 or at year 2, for example, so let's see here. So, pila man ang ato ang sinking fund? Sige, dito sa year 3. Balance at year. Book value of your liability at year 3. Okay. So, kung kala lang iyang pangutana, so it's just simply the cost of your liability, which is 5 million, and then you deduct the one that you have sold for the balance of your sinking fund at year 3. And you will get 2,289,151.71, which is your balance at the end of year 3. Okay, so it's as simple as that. And then now let's move on to differing, what do you call this one? Differing interest rates. So actually, I'm not really I'm not really fond on how this was presented, because in this case kasi parang it was set in stone na nga your periodic payment should be 6183.90, or like if you would look at the book, 6183.90, or in this case for annuity due, it was set na on a pedestal na dapat 818,987.40 yung periodic payments talaga. But in cases like this wherein every period mag-differ ang imuhang interest earned for your sinking fund or for your annuity, and then kanang tawag ani oy, and it would entail nga dapat kay maintain yun ang imuhang periodic deposit. The thing is that this would involve complex annuity na. And so with that, I will not be discussing to you this one, which was presented by our reference book. But I'll just stop here for sinking fund. How would you solve for balances of your sinking fund at particular periods, or the interest that it has earned for that particular period. Oh, I forgot to what do you call this one, to add this on this one, no? So how much is your interest income? So how would you solve it now? How much is your interest income for at the end, total interest income earned at the end of year 3? How would you solve it? Okay, so that's just very simple. You compute for the balance at year 3. So what is your balance at year 3? Total interest income earned on year 3. So what is your balance at the end of year 3? So this, your formula actually is equal to balance at year 3 at year 3 balance at year 3, and then you deduct from it your periodic payments for 3 years. So in this case, our balance at year 3 is how much? This one. And we deduct from it 818 987.40, our periodic payments, and then simply multiply it by 3. That is our periodic payments for 3 years. Okay? So with that, your total interest income earned for 3 years is 253,886.09 now. Let's check. So our total interest income earned for 3 years is this one. So year 1 plus year 2 plus year 3. Okay, 253,866.09. Okay, the answer is still the same. So you apply this concept as well with our annuity due, and you will still arrive at the same answer. Okay, so what else, Baba? What else did I forget for this one? I think that's just it. So this is the end for our part 1 for sinking fund and amortization, covering sinking fund. I'll see you in the second part, which will cover amortization. Thank you so much for listening.